Thanks for tuning in to the Animal Control Report podcast, where we help debunk the dog catcher stereotype. A lot of times people think it's the dog catcher when they hear about animal control officers, but here on the Animal Control Report, we change that by taking you inside the day-to-day operations of animal control officers. Not only will you hear stories of animal control officers, but you'll hear from industry experts as well. We are also part of the Keep It Humane podcast network. We have some amazing partners there, so check them out at keepithumane.com/podcast network. You can listen to all the animal control and animal welfare related podcasts there. And let's continue to help people help animals. Welcome to another episode of the Animal Control Report with your hosts,
Ashlee Bishop
and Texas Bishop.
Did you know a chessboard has two bishops?
Yes.
Yes.
And did you know I'm going to give a quiz. This is a quiz.
Uh-oh.
If you can get this right, I'll send you a hoodie for free. Not our listeners, though, because they could Google it. I know neither of you can Google it right now. Who said and in what movie, this shit ain't checkers, it's chess? Okay.
I don't know half the movies I've watched.
I'll have to keep the hoodie. For those of you wanting to watch on you should look at if you saw Texas Bishop's face, but you should check us out on YouTube or watch the video on Spotify because she has this cool braid going across the top of her head. That's pretty pimp. Also,
check
yourself
out.
I did. I just, not to look like a hot mess today. So I was like, well, we'll get all the white hairs out of the way today.
White hairs are
Sorry,
cool.
Dan.
No, white hairs are cool. Check out livetrap.com. That's right, livetrap.com. One of our officers showed me their 32-inch extended baton. So the collapsible baton, it goes from like 12 inches to 32 inches. They bought it from livetrap.com, and it's pretty dang cool. So check that out. Keep it humane. Keep it humane for 10% off of that order, by the way.
On one of the Facebook pages, somebody was looking for a specific type of trap, and they're like, I can't seem to find it anywhere. I suggested they reach out to livetrap.com and see if they would be interested in, making something. Because I know Kyle's always looking at updating things and making it
they manufacture
useful.
a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you've got ideas, reach out to them. I bet you that they would at least listen to you.
I wonder if they can trap a young lady that's willing to be in a relationship with her. No? All right, we'll keep that moving.
Yeah, keep going.
So check out keepithumane.com.
I didn't know we were going there.
keepithumane.com for all the updates. There's a big list of all the trainings. I swear there's like 12, 15 trainings up there. You can learn about smart shelters. You can learn about the podcast. You could check out our podcast network, keepithumane.com/podcast network. Our guest that's going to join us in a minute was actually a guest on one of our podcast network affiliates. Is that what you'd call it? Affiliates?
Yes.
Didn't
use the right word.
The Animal Welfare Junction. Shout out to Dr. G. She's been busy, but she's getting back into it. She's been doing a lot of schoolwork. I swear, man, I don't know how y'all people do higher education. I'm like, as soon as I was out of high school, that was it.
I don't recommend it. It was a whole other life of
Some people do it for life.
I couldn't.
No. Mm-mm. Or with children. I'm glad I did it before my kids, because good God, I don't have time now.
You're a superstar. I just with dogs, it was enough for me in my master's program. No thanks.
How are y'all doing? Everything good other than living the nightmares of being in college?
I can move my arm. So you know what?
Oh, wow.
I'm getting there.
Love
I don't have
Last time we
strength.
talked, it was only like here. So now we can.
Yeah. The frustrating part though is the physical therapy, because the therapist is like, I can see that you can lift the weight, but lifting a dog that's wiggling is different, and I don't know how to replicate this for you.
Get a Chihuahua and have you hold it.
I have 4. I'll lend you
We're
one.
talking 75 pounds.
Get your meat missile. What's his name again?
Yes. Yeah, he's my
Why did I forget
80-pound
his
meat
name?
missile.
Rex? Is it Rex? What is his
Rex.
name?
Yeah,
Gosh,
Rex.
why did
'Cause he
I
wrecks
just
everything.
Well, speaking of wrecking things, let's put things together with our guest. Let's introduce Elizabeth Mengion. How do I say it? Mengion?
Manigon.
Man, you told me the right way and then I screwed it up, so it's fine.
Always.
Well, it's an easy way to remember it. When I'm single, my friends say men are gone.
So you need one of those traps too, huh?
So I need a yes.
Hey Kyle, we need some human traps.
Human-sized traps.
Just put an expensive pair of shoes in there and I'll walk right into it.
That's funny. I think my demographic just put a cell phone in there and I'm probably be fine.
Oh, please.
So.
People don't want-
Elizabeth, welcome to the
Yes.
Animal Control Report.
Thank you. Thank
Thanks
you
for standing by while we had our morning shenanigans.
Yes.
We need to know, so first and foremost, your backstory, let people understand or know about Hands to Paws, but I think even how that started, like where that came from and what you're doing now.
Sure. So I actually I've always been a dog owner. I've always been a dog lover. You know, if there was a puppy and a baby in a carriage, I always went to the puppy, not the baby. So I've always been a responsible dog owner. And I was living in the city during COVID, and everybody was quarantined. So of course, when people got out, they would try to get their dogs out for short periods of time. And I was seeing this pattern of dogs that are not city dogs. Labradoodles, golden doodles, corgis, Australian shepherds. And I would see these dogs bouncing down the sidewalk. And I would say to myself, what is wrong with these people? These aren't apartment dogs. And then I just go on my way and go back to my apartment with my Starbucks. And then was about probably a couple of months later, I was living out of the country. I used to be in the hotel industry. I moved back to the city. I was at my new job for 10 weeks and we were all sent home on March 16th. So I'm sitting in my beautiful apartment overlooking, Manhattan and thinking, okay, I'm over 50. Who's going to hire me? I had to really start to reevaluate. And even though I was working, my job ended in September. So during that period, like a lot of people, I did a lot of self-reflecting. And some of it wasn't good. You get your head in a place. And I thought, I've really wasted a lot of time. I don't have kids. And I want to do something that matters. I want to leave something behind when I'm no longer here. So I didn't know what that was going to be. And then in June, I moved out of my apartment and I wanted to start a small business. So I started a small organic business making organic products. And one day, there were 3 miniature Australian shepherds in my apartment building. And I thought, what is wrong with these people? And why are people buying these dogs? So I did some research and there was no app that actually asked questions that were relevant and then would match you with a breed. And I took it a step further because I know the industry and I didn't want the American Kennel Club. Yes, I will say it. I didn't want them involved. And it would be irresponsible to have an app created that just said, here's the list of dogs that are perfect for your lifestyle, and then people run off to a pet store. So it actually connects you with the breed specific association.
So yeah,
which is called
AKC, you can go on the website and put in and try to like find a dog to match you, right?
Well, that's very interesting. The American Kennel Club charges $249 to find you a dog. That is why they would not let Hands to Paws be a vendor at any of their events.
Okay.
Because I'm free. So if you download the app, answer the questions. Let's say you're matched with a boxer.
I'm going there right now. I'm doing this while we talk. Go ahead.
Okay, so you would click on, a Maltese, and you would be sent to the Maltese Club of America. If you were matched with a Great Dane, you would be sent to the Great Dane Club of America. These are parent companies, parent clubs, pardon me. What most people don't realize is a parent company has their own set of bylaws. These are the people that breed and show for a living.
Okay.
They're not in the business of selling puppies. They sell puppies because they don't meet the breed standard. We also incorporated rescue. I am a huge rescue advocate. I created a website and a petition to regulate backyard breeding because that has become a nightmare. So the app basically just asks you 9 questions.
I'm in your app right now and I'm taking the quiz. I'll tell you what it matches me with here in a second.
Same.
What's the website again?
Hands2paws.com, but if you just go in the app store and put hands to paws, that'd be great. Also, if you those that can't see this in our chat, Bishop just posted a tattoo, which is not the cat tattoo challenge, which we're up to like 8 people now, by the way. We'll get to that later. That is actually the logo of the Smart Shelter, ironically. So you should see that here coming.
Yeah.
Soon. Anyway.
So that's why the app was created. It was all about educating people, get the right breed that matches your lifestyle and your expectations. People's decisions are now made by social media. So if they see someone with a doodle, they go and buy a doodle.
Mhm.
If they see somebody with a Pomsky, the Puggle was a backyard breeder dog. Everybody wanted a Puggle. So these breeders are trying to breed that cool looking dog. So they get, all this attention. It's the same with the Frenchie. There is no fuzzy Frenchie.
Mhm.
So
There's actually an article out there from the gentleman who first bred the doodle, the
yes,
Labradoodle, and
he
he regrets ever doing it.
said he created a Frankenstein.
Yep.
As a matter of fact,
Now I got to sign in to see what I get matched with.
Okay.
Why do I got to do all that?
So
Hold on, I got to do it. I'm going to do it.
we don't sell your email information. It just holds your search.
It's fine. I'm just.
It's interesting that we talk about the furry Frenchies. The rescue organization that I got 2 of my dogs from specializes in Frenchies. And they've been seeing a lot of that type of dog coming through, and they're selling quite crazy right now at auction and things like that, they're saying. And it's just why.
Well, here's the issue I have. Because I was a business person and not an animal advocate. I mean, I didn't come from a family of, going to Washington and, boycotting and women's rights. My mom was a housewife and my dad was a contractor. So I wasn't brought up. I got this from my grandfather's side. So I'm the one that says, okay, let's look at this logically and reasonably. When I'm on a podcast, I get to come back to podcasts because once you say ban puppy mills, shut down breeding, nobody wants to talk to you because it's not logical and reasonable. That just isn't the way the world works. So the issue that I have is what is really upsetting is having a product that really will make a difference. And to get the Humane Society, the ASPCA, what's the other one?
HSUS?
She said that one. We're not going to say it.
Humane Society. I went to an event. They had a thing about puppy mills, and I left in tears.
Let me ask you this, because this is really, 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 really important. How does it pull from the shelter data? Because I looked at the dog that it matched me with, which was a border collie pit bull mix, which I say yes to. How does it, so like if I'm an animal shelter, how do I put in the data so when I'm somebody going to look for a dog, it matches me with what I'm requesting? So like how does that tie together? And it's a two-part question. And can this be expanded to just the community? So if I wanted to get rid of Mooney, my dog, could I list him on hands to paws, and then somebody could, instead of him ever coming into the shelter, somebody could adopt him directly from me? Two-part question.
Okay, so first part, because of the way the coding is done, and because of the way the rescue world operates, we had to code and pull from Pet Finder.
Okay.
So, and the problem with that is Pet Finder, number one, is very vague. It'll say puppy, adult. They don't really give a lot of information. A lot of the times the dogs that they have posted are not half boxer and half something else. They're like a completely different dog. So that was the best we could do.
Okay.
We had to tie in adoption, but Pet Finder was really the only resource. Now, down the road, there may be changes to the app, but it pulls from a 200-mile radius of your VPN. You can't control that. I could have the coder go in and change it to a 10-mile radius of your VPN. But you can't go in and select, I want the dogs in my neighborhood. It goes by your VPN and 200 miles.
So if I steal cable and use a VPN blocker, it might send me dogs from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania?
It could, sure. It
All
could.
right. So, and then is there an idea to make it where at some point this could be community-based, where, somebody is on hard times and has to get rid of their dog and could list it there?
We spoke about it, but then you're opening a whole different, we're getting involved in the actual process. We are just a conduit.
Yeah.
We're a conduit. So we try to build relationships with shelters. What's very interesting is a year ago, I had an idea to come up with an app that was completely geared towards the rescue industry. I have a friend who's looking for a Chihuahua. I've got 900 bags of food I can't use. I know somebody who's flying from LA and wants to know if anyone needs a transport. Literally, they use Facebook to connect. I wanted a platform where they all go there and network with each other. Nobody was interested. They seem to be set in their own way of doing their rescue and not wanting to work more seamlessly.
I want to jump into some of these questions that we had, because this is the first one really intrigues me, and this is stuff you came up with, Liz. So this is actually pretty cool. What do you think the main factor is contributing to the number of dogs in the shelters?
Backyard breeders that are unneutered. There's a mentality of people who don't neuter their pets. And I think the increase is backyard breeders that it's an all cash grab. So they're breeding dogs, they're half breeding dogs to death. And then they dump them. They dump the undesirable outcomes, the puppies that they can't sell, that are deaf, that are blind because they have no idea what they're doing. people are dumping them in shelters because they originated from people who have no experience. They have major medical issues, and instead of putting them down and they don't want to spend the money, they drop them off at shelters. So
So you think
from
intentional backyard breeders are the leading cause of why there's so many dogs in the shelters? Or do you
I
think
think
it could be access to care in general?
I think it's a combination of a lot of these things. But when you buy a dog from a backyard breeder or a pet store, and you walk into a vet and they say, oh, by the way, your dog needs a $20,000 heart surgery, you say, thank you very much. You walk out, you drop it in a shelter and say, we're moving to Dubai and we can't bring our dog. Someone told me, this was a year ago, that 60% of owner surrenders are wrong breed and medical conditions. So they purchased the wrong dog. And this is all, remember, this is all from pet stores and backyard breeders, because when you buy a breeder who breeds for show, my dog came from a breeder who breeds show dogs. My dog could not be shown. She had a disqualifier because she was too tiny. I had to sign a contract and agree that no matter what happens, this dog can never go anywhere but back to her. So when you buy a dog from a breeder at that level, I have to bring the dog back to her. I have an interview from a gentleman who was a former judge for the AKC, and he's a breeder at Bedlington's, and he said, but no matter what, a good breeder will say this dog will come back to us at any age, at any time. So a lot of these dogs, your mini micro bullies, your Frenchies, they're all bred repeatedly. You get people who say, oh, I had an oops litter. And you can tell it's a mixed litter and they're not desirable and they can't sell them. So they bring them to a shelter. So other than California, which has their own issues, I think that the increase is unregulated backyard breeding across the entire United States, because it's all cash.
I would agree with you to some point. One of the things that I think I see here in Wisconsin a lot more, though, is housing. I have a lot of people that abandon their animals in their apartments because they get evicted and now they have nowhere to go because no place will accept their animal. Um, and so housing and finding places and landlords that are willing to accept the animals is definitely a huge hindrance as well.
Oh, look at the people. We did a blog about people that are elderly and there's no backup plan when they pass away.
Mm-hmm.
They dump dogs in shelters. So, there's a huge ball of where all these animals are coming from. But I think I wanted your opinion on, do you think unregulated backyard breeding, the breeding dumps, the people that just take the mom and the dad and a few puppies and go, Jesus, we didn't realize this was so much work.
If we could have like an accurate study, I bet you that's about 25 to maybe 40% of why there's overpopulation in animal shelters. I don't think
Okay.
it's as big as I don't. I mean, I think sure it contributes to a lot of animals in the community, but at the end of the day, if I wanted to take my dog that I did get from Facebook Marketplace that, wasn't spay or neutered, or I got it from a shelter that doesn't require spay or neuter, or did a foster to adopt program and we never brought the dog back to get fixed, something like that. And then I realized that it's going to cost upwards of $500 to $800 to get that dog fixed. I'm probably not going to do it if I'm talking about the demographic that we're discussing. And then now there's going to be some oops litters, right? There's going to be that. And so that contributes as well. I don't know what percentage to put on that. What do you think, Bishops?
I mean, for me, me being in Texas, we all know Texas and the wonderful overpopulation that we have here. For what I see, I'm in a very unique situation where I am nearby to a large university. Like OG Bishop said, I think a lot of what we have issues with is housing. That's one major thing. Housing is a thing, all these students coming in, they can't afford pet deposits, they can't, or breed restrictions that are just ridiculous, things like that, rather than going on an individual basis, which I understand insurance can be a pain in the butt on those properties, and I understand that. But for us here, and what I see in the, I'm gonna quote unquote excuses that I'm getting, a lot of it has to do, like Dan said, is with just care in general, or just the ignorance of owning a pet. I mean, it is a lifelong, ordeal to think about, and not too many people put that emphasis on this pet's gonna maybe live up to 10, 15 years, depending on what breed. And they don't think past the moment of, oh, this is a puppy, it's being cute, and I love it so much. And they are into the geriatric phase of the pet's life, and well, medical bills are gonna start rising up. I think it's a culmination of a lot of things where people in general have relied on shelters their entire time to say, okay, I don't want this dog anymore for XYZ reason. Here you go. And that's just kind of how it's been. So, for me on my end, it's been very important to educate our community on all aspects of things of, giving back as much as we can, free spay and neuters, free microchips, free rabies, that type of thing, so that we are ensuring that our community understands that this pet is just not a pet. It is a lifelong commitment, and this is what comes with it. Obviously, yes, there's a lot of oops litters that happen, and we get a lot of phone calls for, well, my dog had a litter of 9 puppies, and, what do I do? And, then we start that education process from there. Well, maybe it's time to get mama fixed. If you are going to be rehoming those pets, we have options if they live within our city limits, have them come by so that we can get them fixed. And, the list goes on and on and on. But I think both.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No,
Sorry,
yeah.
there's a slight delay.
Yeah, not a problem. I just think the culmination of both the education of being a pet owner, and then two, just the high cost of everything that comes with being a pet owner, I think has been a huge problem of why we're seeing more and more increase. And of course, COVID and everything that happened with that. So
we did a blog about that, and we say you never buy a dog for your kids. Buying a puppy is a family decision, because when I go off to college, my Yorkie isn't coming with me, it's staying with my parents. But if your parents don't want a dog and they bought the dog for you, they go, no, sorry, the dog goes with you or it goes in a shelter. So there's a breakdown right at the beginning of getting a pet. I went through this with a friend's son who wanted a Pomeranian. He's 15. I said, okay, your parents don't want the Pomeranian, you do. What happens when you go to college? And he's like, oh, well, I didn't think about that. I'm like, well, of course you didn't think about that. So, it's a family decision. Whether you're a single parent, buying a dog for your kid is the worst thing you can do, because the parents end up taking care of it, or they say no. I understand colleges that put restrictions, because here's the problem. Who wants to, in college, run back to your dorm to feed your dog? You're in college, you're like, you don't even know what day it is, right? It's that built-in responsibility. The only way a college, I think, to be very progressive, is colleges should have a kennel, where if you're a college student, you can bring your dog there and you pay and your dog's taken care of. And then you go about your day and your dog isn't locked in a room all day, because Disney World a bazillion years ago, you could bring your pet, but you couldn't bring your pet into the park. They had a kennel. And you could go see your dog every day and then you're off doing what you're doing. So I think that there are ways of getting creative, but in
Especially
the
if they
grand,
made it a shelter management course and they had an actual kennel where they were required to take care of the
Or the
animals,
vet tech.
exactly,
that tech, something
exactly.
like that. I
So this,
I don't
exactly.
think that we'll see that anytime soon, though.
Yeah, there's a lot of things we won't see anytime soon. You know, I'm a landlord, and there are times that I said no pets. And I realized it was because somebody, you know, comes in with a Saint Bernard and didn't clean up after it. That changed long ago. I just say it depends on the dog. And if you don't clean up after it, it comes out of your
So
deposit.
wait. Let me make sure I understand this. You would still reject somebody based on the type of dog?
No. I said a long time ago.
Oh, I see. I see.
Yeah, a long time
Because there was
ago.
a study recently done. We had them on talking about that. It was the ASPCA, that like the amount of damage caused by a dog is, or any pet, is very minimal.
You know when there's damage caused? When you take your dog and lock it in the bathroom and you go off to work all day and the entire back of the door is scratched to pieces. It's very interesting. You can tell a lot about how someone treats their dog. So I've had more filthy tenants than I've had dogs. So, you know, it's people, but it's also how people treat their pets.
Sure.
The only damage you see in a place is if they lock it in a room.
Sure.
So, you know, it all goes back to responsible pet ownership and being logical and being reasonable.
But we
But we
don't
live in,
have, right. So that's part of the problem with some of the access to care and overpopulation, et cetera, is owning a pet in this country. There are no standards that are taught like from a governing body. It is all taught by how you are raised around animals, what your family dynamics are, etc. There's no like,
What your culture is.
yeah, absolutely, all that stuff, right?
oh, sure.
Absolutely.
There's nothing, as we, go through and learn about Benjamin Franklin or learn about trigonometry that I'll never apply in life ever. Uh, right? Like, but we don't teach our youth about like, hey, at some point, it is very likely that you're going to add a pet to your family. Here are like they could do one semester on responsible pet ownership in schools. Like, I don't know
They
why we
could be
don't.
bringing it to family and consumer education classes.
They have that.
It's so interesting, Dan, that you say that because, a lot of times myself and my officers that are out in the field, we get a lot of the parents that are like, well, it's my kid's dog, and they're like
Oh
3
my God,
years
I hate
old.
that.
I do too. And, we very much take the stance of, you are the adult. This is
Yeah.
not your 3-year-old's dog. It is not their responsibility to keep it in their yard. It is your responsibility. And I feel
Yeah.
like it's very much just a cultural thing too, of just like that's how people grew up, that's how they saw it. And it's just, it's very much us changing that rhetoric, especially in the field, to make people responsible.
Here's why
Yeah,
it
I
should
think
be a
that's
requirement. Here's why it should be a requirement and not like an elective or like something that is dismissed, because the majority of this country has a pet. And if you don't have a pet, you should still be educated on it, just like they want to educate me on trigonometry that I would never use, is because then you're better able to identify if that pet is not being treated well, etc. One of the most fascinating things that I've realized recently is if you contact like, and we talk about the mental health aspect of this job and having, we had humane help on, like we've talked about, we've gone down that rabbit hole a lot. But if you ever call a therapist to discuss anything, there is a disclaimer that if you talk about hurting others or yourself, they have to report it. What they don't say is if you talk about hurting an animal, they have to report it. And so we're missing it on all facets. And that's my point of like making it an all-inclusive required part of our education system will, I think it'll pay dividends in the long run We're probably still 20 to 50 years from that, though, unfortunately.
I think that, I'm a huge fan of the programs that they have in the low security prisons where they work with rescue dogs.
Mhm.
I think that's a wonderful program. I actually have a friend whose wife is a principal at a school. I want to talk to a shelter, and next year I'd like to volunteer and work into their curriculum a quiet room, right? And have a rescue dog there for a couple of hours a day. There are so many kids that are stressed out. There are hospital programs, there's so much we can do with dogs that are in shelters other than euthanizing them. And I think that we need to, as a society, we need to become more creative because every day Congress is overlooking unregulated, all cash, tax-free backyard breeding. It's growing every day. And we keep overlooking that. And the shelters are only getting fuller and fuller and fuller. And I think that what's going to happen is either we have to start building more shelters, which who's going to do that, or they're going to have to start euthanizing dogs over a certain age. And that's it, because if there's more dogs than people, right, it all starts with the people. But if nobody wants to listen, how do you manage a situation where you say, okay, well, we've got the dogs, whether they're here or not, what do we do with them? And I think there are more creative ways to, to help these dogs and assist these dogs in these shelters. Because in the end, the dog suffers, regardless. It's always the dog that suffers. And I think that's the hardest part, and no one's looking down the road. Nobody's saying, what's the dog industry going to look like in 5 years?
Yeah, there is zero succession planning, in my opinion. Now, others that are listening may disagree, but I don't think there's much succession planning whatsoever. It's just, and that's partly because we have to put this fire out and we're focused on that fire. And I can guarantee you, everybody listening is at max capacity. I'm part of 2 shelters, and we are at max capacity at both.
Wait till the bomb drops with pet insurance, because pet insurance is going to either stop insuring Frenchies, any brachiocephalic dog. They're going to stop, or they're going to raise the rates that are going to be so high people can't afford it, because people who buy a Frenchie from a pet store.
Well, and that goes back, honestly, Liz, that goes back to the access to care.
Exactly. Listen, I have a dog who I know. Oh, sorry, you froze out. I have a dog, an Italian Greyhound, and who's almost 9. And one day I looked at her and said, gee, her eye doesn't look right. Her eye was bigger. I got on the phone and got an eye specialist, and she has glaucoma. And I have to give her drops 5 times a day, and she's got minimal vision in that eye. Now, if I was an irresponsible pet owner, I would either let it go, or I bring it to the vet and go, God, I'm not going to pay for that, and I dump it at a shelter.
So to go back to Liz, to go back to the question of where all the dogs are coming from, I have a question for Dan and Ashlee. Does California or Texas have any kind of state regulation to regulate puppy mills?
Well, that's the USDA.
No, so she's asking specifically to our states, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to be a question regarding California has a law that you can't, basically you can't have puppy mill dogs at, how you used to be able to go to the mall and go to the pet store and buy a cute little Havanese like that. that has to be a shelter dog.
Petland.
That has to be a shelter dog now. And that Texas Bishop, I would imagine Texas just
doesn't. Yeah. So
No, everything is up left to the jurisdictions themselves. The state really hasn't wanted to take a stand. I know one of the organizations that tries to lobby and stuff like that has really been trying, but it hasn't really gone anywhere.
and I think Ashlee Bishop, OG Bishop, you had a follow up to that, right?
yeah, so Wisconsin actually has Act 90, which regulates anybody that is selling, which that includes adopting, 25 or more dogs a year has to meet the state standards and submit to inspections by the Department of Ag. And
And
that goes
who,
for
but here's the thing, who actually follows up with that? The
the
Department
Department
of
of
Ag,
Ag.
and they've admitted that they are so overwhelmed, they can't even do their job because there's.
Not in Wisconsin.
That's interesting.
I have direct contact with, they have it sectioned out regionally, and they have specific employees that have so many counties, and they are responsible for going to every 2 years. They go to each humane society, they go to each rescue facility, and anybody else that is found to be selling 25 or more dogs in a year, they have to be inspected, they have to be state certified. So if I happen to find somebody that is backyard breeding and I can prove that they had 25 dogs or more, I call up the state and go, hey, this one needs to be licensed. You need to go check them out.
Colorado
And
had
I work directly with
Colorado had
them.
the same thing, and that was enforced by it's the Pet Animal Care Facilities Act, and so they would regulate breeders in the same way. Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
are they a little overwhelmed because of the amount of rescues that are just popping up everywhere? Sure, but they still get to it. Again,
Hmm.
I think we really have to look at like the animal shelter world as we know it is only about 160 years old, approximately. So it's still fairly new in the aspects of like just what we're doing. And I think we have to continue to look at different ways to educate. The majority of people, their knowledge of animal shelters are from Lady and the Tramp or 101
Hmm.
Dalmatians, right? And
Sure. Yeah.
finding ways to get the truth out there and to get people to understand how they can help in different ways. And then on top of that, not to take away from people's livelihoods, but you have veterinarians that, granted, they spend a lot of money to get that degree and then open a private practice. Their overhead is large. And so they have to charge more. And so there has to be incentives, government incentives, in my opinion. People probably won't like that, hearing that, but there has to be incentives to these veterinarians to offer discounted services, to offer services to people that otherwise would never come to the vet because they can't afford treatment. That's what we're
Hmm.
seeing.
Yeah.
That's
Or
why
work
we're
with the
having the
schools.
issues. Yeah,
Well,
that's why we're
you're
having
seeing
the issues.
Mars, it owns, what is it, VCA?
Yeah.
Or, yeah, so you've got Mars buying up all of these veterinarian businesses, and it's not like the little house, like our vet, like had this little renovated house, and this old lady answered the phone. Now it's a business, and they're being owned by major corporations. So, I mean, it's.
Well, I think if we could work with some of the schools and getting, um, even the vet tech programs, they have to have a veterinarian on staff. Um, so these students need to work on real live animals.
Mm.
Great, they can go out to the shelters, but if they could open up a low cost vaccine clinic that at least gets eyes on the animals. I actually worked with our technical college, and we kind of came up with an idea, and I don't know that it's going anywhere right this minute, But they have a trailer that they have, it's a dental hygiene
Mhm,
trailer.
mhm.
And I said, what if you found a way to be able to convert that for animal stuff and be able to use it through the vet tech program as well? So now you're having the trailer have dual purpose. So, yay, better bang for your buck. Um, and then it can travel throughout the county and go
Sure.
to different places and offer vaccine clinics. I don't care if it's bare minimum rabies vaccines. That is the most important one. Um, and then again, you are getting somebody else's eyes on these animals, and they can say, hey, you know what? This one's got an ear infection. Maybe they can work with another clinic that says, hey, if they come through you, we can do a discounted rate or something.
And that's the
Um,
whole the premise of this whole One Health model that you're starting to see more and more of. We'll check you out and your animal at the same time. And it goes into the smart shelter stuff that I've been trying to really push on the side. I haven't really talked about it much on the podcast, but I think in general, we have to do a better job of being available and not. So I mean, animals have changed so much from being property to now being family. I think that's a huge component that we haven't caught up to that yet. We still see it as their property and not family. And until, I think, again, 20 to 50, like until we get people to make some changes, it'll be the same ways for the foreseeable future. So we have to continue to impact, but we have to make some legislative changes. 100%.
Wow.
I feel like I
No,
feel
no, yeah.
like everything you've talked about, Elizabeth, has come back to the care of the animals and being able to have access to the veterinary care, because if there's the poor breeding, okay, maybe we can't stop that because people want the money, but we could encourage them to breed better if we could offer the vet exams at a lower cost to provide information that, hey, maybe this isn't the dog you want to breed with.
You know what really gets
But
me?
then
You know what
what's
really
that?
gets me is when we offer like a low cost or no cost vaccine clinic, and this
And
person,
nobody shows.
no, 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 no,
Hate that. Oh,
no,
it's the
no, no,
worst.
no. Hold up. It's a low cost, no cost vaccine clinic, and this person shows up with 8 golden retriever puppies or 10 golden doodles,
Mm.
right? And you know they're going to go sell them. They just want to get the vaccine cheap so then they could say this animal comes with the rabies vax. Like, I don't know how we regulate that in that aspect. That's what can I say that's what grinds my gears? But no, seriously, it's like you're here taking advantage of something that should be used for
Sure.
people that truly need it. And that's the thing, is like we need to figure out ways to continue to add regulatory processes. And I think we're getting there slowly but surely. We are getting there. We need, again, in my opinion, something has to be done on the federal level to change, to govern animal shelters. Like there's no oversight outside of your state or your county, right? And then B, incentivize, make it worth it for a veterinarian to go into a vet desert, right, where there is no veterinary
Mhm.
services, and offer subsidized. I'm telling you, subsidized treatment, access to care will help impact what's coming into the shelters. Period.
Well, I think what's interesting is it's also demographic, right? If you live in Louisiana, you may view and treat your dog differently than if you live in Greenwich, Connecticut.
Sure.
You don't tie your dog outside, or, but you pay $15,000 for a Labradoodle that you swore came from a reputable breeder. And I'm like, no, you actually spoke to a puppy broker, which also is in complete denial. But I think it's trying to educate people. Unfortunately, I found out a lot about shelters I don't like. A lot of these shelters are making money off of people under the premise, oh, please help this dog. So, you know, I agree with you. I think that there needs to be a major overhaul in the animal rescue world. Because wasn't there a woman in California that said she had a shelter and the dogs were like half dying and she was taking the money?
I
It
mean,
was some woman.
that happens everywhere. If you Google Luann Strickland in Colorado, her husband was like a senator and she had this deplorable rescue, but she, you know, used her husband's name and her claim to fame in that aspect and was
Yeah.
truly a like a negligent environment for these 400 plus animals. By the end,
Oh,
they ended up seizing all of them, but she had political ties and connections that people trusted her to take these animals.
sure. Yeah, I think that that's another, you know, I wrote down on one of my questions for you is, do you think every shelter that comes in contact and brings in a dog should microchip the dog if it isn't microchipped?
100%.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
100%. My shelter, when I took over, I don't care if you have the $10 or you do have the $10, your dog's getting a microchip before it leaves my doors, period. Period.
And
It doesn't matter.
I believe in that. And again, it's another thing that you can't implement. But all of these things can help with what is going on in this industry.
By the
Um,
end, Luann Strickland, and I'm going to tease this because we got to do an episode on her. This is actually super fascinating stuff. By the end, they seized over 600 animals from her
Dogs?
property. No,
Was it dogs?
it was cats and dogs. 500 dogs and over 100 cats. 175 cats, 500 dogs.
So she was just a nut. She was just a nut. She was taking dogs, saying, I have a shelter.
She was what we would consider as a hoarder. She was
That's a hoarder.
she was a rescue hoarder, right? So she, in her mind, felt that nobody else could care for these animals. Anyway, I digress. That's just a fascinating
Okay.
story.
I think you should talk about that because animal hoarding is a whole other thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
now that I put it on the forefront, I want us to do a whole episode on her because it's actually fascinating. She actually, I'll save it. Anyway,
Yes.
Go
what other
off.
questions do you have before we wrap this thing up?
So I'd like to know, do you or do you not agree with my feeling on major organizations are not doing enough to educate the public? There are no public service announcements on major networks. Even if you just said, hey, you want to buy a puppy, it may not be what you think it is. Do your research, don't buy a puppy online.
Ugh.
Do you think that they're doing anything to educate people? Because I don't think they are.
I think that there is a whole slew of lack of education in general when it comes to the animal world. So between buying an animal as well as, you know, proper husbandry things, there's a whole lot of things that could be educated on. Um, but I mean, where's Bob Barker when we need him?
My guy.
Spay and neuter your pets.
Betty White, poor Betty.
I was gonna say
Oh,
Betty
yep.
White. Yeah. I think God. Um, you know, as the animal world, as we call it, there's just so many moving parts, and the problem is just so catastrophic, I think, right now in a lot of aspects that it's really hard to put that on just one organization. A lot of it comes down to the communities themselves. And like we tell our community in our jurisdiction is we are not a money-making department. We flush money like crazy. I mean, we have enough to keep our staff going to make sure that they're good. But at the end of the day, I'm lucky enough to where they understand my chain of command, my organization understands that we are not a money-making department. At the end of the day, I want to get these animals home. And I want to make sure that they have the proper education and make sure that they're fixing the issues that they have should they come in via animal control. I think overall, a lot of the bits and pieces of nonprofits and large organizations that are trying to put that a message of their own. I think the biggest issue is that nobody's coming together to just have one message. Everybody has their own. Like all the
Yeah.
larger organizations have their own, and I think as an industry overall, it hurts everybody a lot because we're not all on the same page or even close to being on the same page.
Oh, can you
Absolutely.
imagine if they had a town hall? But here's the thing, if the American Kennel Club stood up and said, all right, that's enough. Stop buying oh my goodness.
Sorry.
Stop buying dogs online. You know what, the American Kennel Club, instead of coming up and saying, we're all about integrity, stop buying these dogs online, you're ruining dog breeds as a whole, they came up with a companionship membership. They're like, screw this. You
You
know
know what's
what?
interesting though, and not to cut you off, but I have to here. What we see, and I'm going to say this bluntly, but in a way that hopefully isn't mean. Our demographic, the animals that are coming into the shelter, could give a fuck about the American Kennel Club. So whatever statements they
Yeah.
make matters nothing, right? That's the reality, and that's the harsh reality. And I don't know how we fix it, right? They don't care about a statement from them. Like they care about what eventually hits their pockets. Like they don't. It's not about the AKC.
But
So
I think
I don't.
but I think if a bigger, I mean, if the Humane Society,
Nope, don't care about them either.
they don't, nobody cares. And when I went to one of their events, they said on a sheet of paper, if you don't want to adopt, go online and find a breeder. I burst into tears. And I said to my friend, I have a free app. It's free. It's not telling people who sell online are people who are backyard breeders. So no matter what step I'm going in, I alone can't educate the world. And this is in the UK. The app is available in Canada and the UK, and they have just about as a problem as we do. And it's all about the backyard breeding and the money and the sick dogs that are being dumped. It's literally a pandemic puppy epidemic. And I think there has to be creative ways, but I know we're running out of time, but I want to just tell you this. Hands to Paws is working with a creative agency. We are going to create Star Paws Challenge, which is like, remember the old the ice bucket challenge? What we're going to do is we are going to work with someone and we're going to try to get athletes, social media, actors, whomever, to highlight their rescue and then call out their friend who has a rescue to tell their story. And it's all about rescue. We just want to get people to call out their friend, hey, so-and-so who plays for the 49ers, and there they are with their dog. So I need a creative agency to work with, but we're trying to do what we can to get the message out.
And that's what I mean. That's what's important. And I think going back to what you said, and what to me, which is somewhat disheartening, we do have organizations that work for their own agenda, and that in some aspects that helps. Like it still helps animals, but it's not helping universally, right? And so when you talk about some of those bigger organizations, why are we not putting that time and effort into creating scholarships for veterinarians, vet techs, et cetera, shelter veterinarians? Like, why are we not creating programs universally to talk about legislative ideas that'll create change in this country? Where really what it feels like, and this is no shade, it's just what it feels like to me. We really are interested in how much we can make in donations so we can continue to run our organization.
That's why they can't say anything. Because if I say something that's going to upset you, you're not going to give me money. Hands to Paws is 100% transparent. We don't ask for money. We don't do anything. All we try to do is tell you, take 5 minutes, get the right dog from the right person.
Yeah, I respect it.
Take
Yeah.
5 minutes, go and get a rescue. And it shouldn't be a rescue. People should be able to go in and see different dogs
Sure.
and see what works with them. So, I think that there's a lot of programs, but Congress doesn't give a shit about dogs.
Yet. That's changing. It's animal welfare has been tied legislatively for a long time, but it was tied legislatively more so because it was part of the financial movement early, in the 1800s when horses were used X, Y, and Z, and then
Oh,
the
sure.
the food industry. But give it time, and we have to still push for it. So, in closing, Bishop, do you have anything final?
We all need to be on the same page. I think it would help
Same
a
page.
lot.
Same
Simple
And I
page.
think
living.
conversations
You know
that
what? I'm one person. I'm one person who came up with an app that nobody else had in the entire world. And I am doing what I can. My business funds my app, whether it's upgrades, coding upgrades. No one gave me any money. So I'm doing the best I can. And any support from the rescue world is what I need. And I will keep you all updated with the Star Paws Challenge. If you have people that have adopted that are either famous, social media presence, just say, hey, look, would you be, it's literally 5 minutes on your phone. That's all it is. It's like the ice bucket challenge. We're not even asking people for money. We just want people to say, hey, I didn't know The Rock rescued a dog. Oh, look, it's so-and-so. I didn't know she rescued a dog. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm doing the best that I can, but I also need support.
Well, we appreciate your time and effort, and we know there's many more people like you. So keep fighting. Hopefully, we can continue to work together to one common goal as a group. And
Yes.
again, check out our website, keepithumane.com, keepithumane.com, where you'll find all the information on our podcast partners and more, like smart sheltering, which can help bring a lot more people together. So,
And also Hands to Paws.
hands2paws.com, right?
Hands2paws.com.
Yeah, check that out. Download the app in your app store. You can play the game of finding what animal is best for you in your area. So that's really cool stuff. So keep up the good
And
work.
don't buy puppies online or in a pet store. And spay and neuter your pets. Thank you, Bob Barker.
Bishop,
Thank
take it
you.
away.
Let me know if you do that podcast about that woman and her 700 animals.
Oh, no, that's absolutely happening now that I thought about it again. I mean, that's a whole true crime type of podcast. So,
Would love to hear it. Would love to hear it.
Luann Strickland, or as I
Luann
would call her,
Strickland.
Luann.
Good old Luann. Is Luann still alive?
No, they're all dead.
Oh, they're all dead. Good. We can really talk about them. But there's a failure right there. If that was you, you would go to prison. Her political connections kept her out of jail.
I think I don't want to. No, I'm not going to talk about it because you're just going to have to
Don't
tune
talk
in.
about it.
We have to tune into that episode. Bishop, take it away.
we're oh my God. I'm so lost here right now. We're gonna keep helping people helping animals.
All right,
I don't know, Dan.
We're going to try
I'm
that again,
lost.
Bishop. Let's help people help animals
Help
and keep it
animals.
humane.